So I've lined up on the old front straight at Winton, and red light's gone off, and I've been in reverse, and I've gone backwards.
Hey everyone, great to have your company again. This is the V8 Sleuth Podcast, powered by Parramatta Toyota, Sydney's Toyota dealer with a passion for performance and motorsport. It's taken me a little while, but we've got there in the end. I'm chuffed that my latest guest for a big sleuth-style, long-form, sit-down chat is five-time Bathurst 1000 winner Steve Richards. Now, Richo's career story is long, very long. It's packed with different cars, different series, and different eras. 3 parts is probably not enough, but all we had time for on this one. But you will find out that there is so much for us to talk about. On this one, part 1, we're going to reveal whether he's actually a qualified aircraft mechanic or not. I've been saying that for years, but is it true? We talk about what happened to that Team 18 deal, his trip to the Goodwood Festival of Speed, the early days in Formula Ford open wheelers, and the AUSCAR days. How good was AUSCAR? Driving a Falcon for Gary Rogers on the Calder Park Thunderdome. Plus, what's happened to that number 34 Falcon and the AUSCAR Ford that GRM and Richo built and never, ever raced. Richo's a ripper, but I have to cop the blame for this. Don't blame him. There are a few tiny audio glitches in these episodes, so please blame me. I'll cop the blame, but I think you'll agree the stories far outweigh any tiny technical shortcomings. Righto, let's go. V8 Sleuth Podcast time, powered by Parramatta Toyota. It's taken us 7 years, but finally, on the V8 Sleuth Podcast, 5-time Bathurst winner Steve Richards is here. You've been hard to nail down. You are a hard man to nail down. You've got a lot going on.
Yeah, and I think there were a couple of times back there when we suggested it and it couldn't work for one reason or another, or there was a time there when my motorsport I was feeling a bit negative towards it, and I didn't really ever want to do that chat when it's been so good to me and reflect something that wasn't really the case. So anyway, that's okay.
We're positive and we're here now.
Plenty of time.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Firstly, these pods, we tend to go all over the shop and we cover a lot of ground, and your career has covered a lot of ground, so we've got a lot of material to work with. But right now, obviously we see what's going on with your son Clay Racing, you're involved, the Trans Am car. What's the day job? What are you doing in between all this? Because motor racing's not the day job.
No, that's not. That sort of finished at the end of 2009. Well, finished around COVID. I was working with Charlie, and had to sort of find our way and go and do something else. And to be fair, it was probably time. I'd been stuck in that rut for a long time, and it was easy. It was an easy potential option. And when the doors shut, I thought, righto, let's try and do something else.
And that's just motor racing was an easy option in whatever role?
Yeah, but there wasn't much available with the door shut in 2020. And I just saw it as an look, don't get me wrong, it wasn't planned to go that direction, but the way it all happened, it probably happened for the better. I managed to take the break out of it, and I worked for a traffic management equipment company, RPM Hire, and you always go back to your personal relationships with people that you've known in the past that are good people. And Ash Woodcock, who owned that business, he didn't really know what role I could have within his business, but we managed to do something. And then after that, I ended up at Essential Caravans. So I'm as the manufacturer, not a dealer. Mm-hmm. We build the vans. We build about 850 caravans a year, from your single axle touring vans to off-road vans. And I don't know, I sort of...
What's your job title? What do you actually do? What's your day? What do you actually do?
And it's really weird because I started there as a bit of an ambassador. I think I call myself a landscaper. I pretty well go and fill all the holes.
Whatever's needed.
Whatever's needed. So I'm one of the managers in there, and my roles just become more and more diverse. I'm from production, technical production stuff, to just helping organise production, to dealer liaisons. We've got about 8 dealers helping there. I've been in the warranty department, just trying to manage the warranty differently. To be honest, it's whatever's required.
Yeah,
fill the gap.
Plug and play.
Fill the gap. Yep.
If there's a gap, you fill it.
Yep.
What have you learnt from your motor racing career that's applied to these gigs post working in racing?
Yeah, so what I have learnt is that the world misses out on people that are doers in some cases. So if you're generally every person that's ever gone through motor racing that I've ever met has a passion for it, and they want to do it. They're willing to sacrifice. They're willing to work long hours.
Yep.
They're willing to learn. We've been very, very spoiled with time in motorsport, and I think what I've learned is that you're pretty well prepared for any situation, provided you're willing to do a bit of learning. You can pretty well fill a gap somewhere in any industry.
Because motor racing's more lows than highs, because you're exposed to all sorts of different people. Is it a mosaic of all of that stuff that all clicks together?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not one big thing.
No, it's not one big thing, and you're never scared. You're always fighting in motorsport. You're always fighting the next challenge.
Yes.
And to be honest, that's what I'm finding you're doing normal everyday life. I started life, came from, I did my apprenticeship as an aircraft mechanic at Moorabbin Airport for Bib Stillwell when he had his business back then. And I just think it prepares you for life on the outside pretty well.
If I ever get a plane, can you fix it for me? Can you work on it for me? Or are you not qualified, or do you need to get your ticket paid? Or how does that all work?
Look, I'll be completely honest. I did my time. I finished my time and worked a year. The last year was when I was the last couple of years I was racing Formula Ford, and that definitely. And my boss at so Stillwell's transferred to Blue Demon Aviation. They're still there at Moorabbin Airport, and my boss Mark was incredibly good at letting me go and do my car racing. But what that did do is I actually didn't quite finish my apprenticeship because I missed out on one of the blocks of school. Oh. So I'd say I'm qualified, but I never quite got that last tick.
So all those years we've been saying you're a qualified aircraft mechanic, we've been fibbing.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, no.
Basically.
We're going to have to rewrite every old bio of yours there, but mate.
I know. I say I am. Technically I am.
Enough.
I just don't
Near
have the sign off from the apprenticeship.
Oh. I reckon I've written that hundreds of times over the years about you being a qualified.
I'm not going to.
You're not unqualified. That would be harsh to say.
That's right.
But
and if you did rock up with your airplane, I still reckon I could.
You could find a way.
I could find a way.
Hey, we're ever at the point that I got an airplane. Some weirds happen in the world, and seriously, I don't think you need to worry about that being a problem somewhere down the track.
Yeah.
What's your driving status these days? Obviously, full-time professional racing's pretty much done, but does the phone ring sometimes for some fun things, or has it rung in the last 3-4? I mean, your last Supercars race was 2019 with Team 18.
Yeah.
Has the phone rung over time, maybe in the years closer to that than more recent? I know the historic stuff's been awesome, and we'll talk about that. But has the phone rung? Has there been opportunities for something else?
Not really, because I think I don't know, but I did actually try when COVID hit and I was dismissed from Charlie. At that point in time, I'd actually had a 2-year deal. I'd sacrificed the 2-year deal to help Charlie manage his sponsorship program. And then
the 2-year deal of being a co-driver.
That's right. That's right. So I was supposed to drive in 2020, but I didn't do that because I was looking for that next step out of driving.
Yep.
But still in motorsport, and that was the opportunity that was presented. So I canned 2020, and of course, everyone
got canned in 2020.
everything got canned, but also everyone got their drivers sorted.
Yeah.
So I kind of went back and put my hand up for 21. And there was something that Walkinshaw were looking to do with a wild card with Jack
Perkins,
and
the undercut zone.
Yeah,
the undercut zone.
Yeah, that's right, the undercut zone. But that it never eventuated. And then I think from that point on, I didn't really try too hard because I'd been out. I wasn't driving full time. The last thing I'd want to do is, if I did get the opportunity, was go and do a poor job because I wasn't doing enough driving. So. And organically, Clay started doing his racing. So I think it just kind of, that stuff, the professional stuff, stopped. But I certainly wouldn't be anti doing something even now when I say the right opportunity, whether it was having a race of our Trans Am car or, just to, because I love it. I love when we do the historic stuff.
Yeah.
It's not competitive racing by any stretch of the imagination, but every time I get in one, I go, I wonder if I can still do this. What's it like to press and the flow comes back.
Yeah, I was going to say the juices start flowing, and
that's right.
And away you go.
Yeah.
Tell me about last year though. So the historic stuff, you've been driving all sorts of cars. Last year, 2025, Goodwood Festival of Speed. You and Murph, fair to say, the rock stars of the 2025 festival. You guys were driving some cool cars that don't get seen over there.
Yep.
You're in the Nissan Skyline, the HR31 that Jim won the championship in 1990, or did the bulk of the work that year before the GDR came. Murph was in the red 24-hour Monaro that he won the race in with Brock and Todd and Bridie in 03.
Yeah.
And they don't get this stuff over there very often. And this is an event packed with Formula One stars, Le Mans legends, MotoGP gurus, the cream of the crop of world motorsport. And these two Kiwi-born blokes have been the superstars, and you won an award, you two, didn't you?
It actually was incredibly unexpected. I think we went over there. We were actually invited over for 2024, but due to particularly our car at Phillip Island Classic that year, the Skyline, it had an engine problem, so we had to spend that year getting that rectified.
And you've got to be invited for good.
That's right.
Got to be. You don't just decide, we're going to enter, we're going to run. You have to be involved.
Yes. Yeah. And then we actually said, look, basically through Pete Sturgeon, who got the invite, and Peter Lucas, who got the invite with the Monaro, we said, look, can we
rain check?
Yeah, rain check to the biggest motoring festival in the world. And they went, yeah, no problem. And it sort of worked out really good because 2025 was the 75-year anniversary of Formula One.
Good year to go.
Good year to go. And again, never quite expecting, it's on a big stage. I'd never been. Dad had been there. He'd been there with Porsche 1 year, and he went over twice. Can't remember the second time, but they treated us like it would be easy at the 75th anniversary of Formula One to be completely lost in the 120 odd Formula One cars that were on display or running up the hill or doing all of that sort of stuff. And yet we weren't. They did their follow-up stories with Murph and I. We were, they treated us like I couldn't believe. It blew me away. And while we were sort of parked down with some incredibly beautiful old cars, the amount of traffic we had through, and look, there's 100,000 people every day there. You're not going to not see anyone. But you're absolutely right. Aussie/Kiwi cars don't get lights very often, and we were highlights of the show.
Well, clearly you're a hit because they keep rolling the vision of you two going up the hill at different times on their social account. Right. I see it every month in my feed. It's out of control. But it's a mecca for motorsport enthusiasts of old stuff, current stuff. There's all the latest car reveals. There's rally cars. There's motorbikes. It's not just the Formula One and the Le Mans stuff. Like, they've got a really wide, and hopefully by the time this podcast is released and airing, I'm at the 2026 event, or I'm about to go, or I've just been, depending on when this one comes out. But for anyone who's going to go, I need Richo's guide to Goodwood. What are the do's and don'ts? Yeah. What have I got to see? What have I got to make sure I try to do? Please tell me, because I don't want to miss out on it.
So the big thing is it's not just about the hill climb. There's so much going on. There's so many displays. It's basically now the UK's big motor show for all the manufacturers. So, you had Jaguar, Land Rover, Porsche, McLaren. They had all spent, in most cases, millions of dollars to be there. And on the side of the hill climb track where the house is, where all the cars are, on the other side, it's the greatest automotive display and technical innovation centre and whatever you want to see, all things automotive that you'd see anywhere in the world. And I'm talking tens of acres of automotive erotica. It's really, really, really good. And then, up the hill, you've got the rally stage. There's a rally stage going on. So you've got some of the best rally drivers and again manufacturers displaying the latest cars and the latest technology, but putting them on display and putting them to good use.
And this is a 4-day event. I've got a feeling I'm going to need all 4 days here, because there's, even just looking at the cars that are doing the hill climb stuff without counting all the other stuff, that's enough in itself for 4 days. But I feel tired already before I've even got there.
And you've got the Duke of Richmond's house that you know, everything.
Can we just pop in?
Yeah, you can.
It's open, isn't it?
Go and do a tour through the house.
Nice.
Check out his bedroom and all that sort of stuff.
Really?
Probably not.
Oh, I was going to say, Richo, jeez. What about the looking at the in-car vision from you guys last year? It looks far more narrow than it looks when you just look at the regular broadcast there. It could be easy when the shadows hit at different times of the day to not quite pick up an apex and taste one of those hay bales, because it's all great, but if it goes a little bit wrong, I reckon it could go pretty wrong.
Yeah,
quick.
The first few runs, it was always the goal to build and make the
record straight away.
Make the last run the good one. But it's as narrow as anything. The hay bales are a bit daunting, and you're rocking up. It's the old Duke's driveway. It's basically the driveway to his house.
It is the driveway.
It's the driveway.
It's not figuratively speaking.
Yep.
It is.
It is. And when you go up the hill, the probably the trickiest bit is where you go, where the big flint wall is. Handy, isn't it? The hardest thing you can possibly hit is actually you're going from the bright sunshine into the darkness.
Yeah.
It's like driving into a cave.
Into a little sort of, not a chicane, but a little right-left sort of flick around this wall.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of time to work that out. But it was incredible. The driving up the hill was one thing. It was spectacular. But for me, it was you get access into the drivers' lounges. And look, we all know we see it now. The quality of Australian Kiwi drivers is as good as anyone in the world. Drop them into anything, right? Give them enough time. It's proven to be the case. But you feel like you are a long way away.
Yeah.
And you don't feel worthy, right? I'm not worthy to be here. What?
How do I get in?
And yet when you do the run up the hill, this is one of the cool parts. You up the run up the hill, and there's like a roundabout where all the cars park, and then once everyone's done their run, then you drive back down the hill. So everyone gets out of the car, and they're all having a chat, and there's Derek Bell over there, and there's Johnny Chicotto over there, and these are all guys that Dad raced against at Bathurst and all this sort of thing. And they're all just wandering around chatting, and you go up and, some of the legends, the other classic one was Dario Franchitti and Carlette. And, they've all driven at the Gold Coast with us. We all know what one another have sort of done. Not that I thought they did, but it's like they're old mates. Murph, Richo, how are you? It's really, really good. But the one, probably the highlight for me was Derek Bell. So we're up the top of the hill there. And I walked up, pulled up in the car, and I walked over. I said, "Oh, Derek, would you mind if I get a photo with you?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure." He goes, "Oh, what are you driving?" I'm in the Nissan overalls. He goes, "Oh, I'm just driving my dad's Nissan Skyline HR31." And he goes, "Jim Richards?" And I went, "Yeah." He goes, "Ah, I had the best battle with Jim back in '79 at Bathurst, and he flew past me in the hatchback. And I couldn't believe it, and we had a beer afterwards, and just that sort of recollection, that was obviously a very special event for him at the peak of his driving. And yet here he was, just this guy. Here we are, generations apart, talking about the things we love, which is really cool.
That's the thing, that because we're so far away in Australia and New Zealand, you build this because you've watched so many of these people on TV.
Yep.
But don't forget, they've watched you on TV too, because they're motorsport tragics, a lot of them, and watching V8s.
And that's the bit I just couldn't connect with. And I've been over there, and I've we've raced against quite a few guys that have come to Australia and driven our cars, but you just forget that the world is so close now with everything we do. The amount of respect that fans have for supercars.
Well, that was the other thing, wasn't it, that blew you away? And you and Murph went to that Max Power, the Super Touring event the year before, 2 years before, at Brands Hatch.
Yeah.
And I think one of you told me that you were shocked at how many people knew who you were, what you did, what you raced in the day, wanted an autograph, wanted a photograph, remembered you driving this car, that car. And you're like, mate, we're on the other side of the planet here.
That's
and you know
exactly
what I
right.
did in 1998 or whatever it is.
It's incredible. It really is. And it's awesome. I mean, the whole motorsport, motor racing, automotive community is just so close now. And I think that's what blew me away the most.
It's cool. I can't wait to
Yep.
go and see some of it. So I don't know where to start with talking. Well, we've talked a bit of the now, but let's go back over some stuff here. It's hard to know. I've got too many notes here, and I don't know how we're going to go, but we'll do our best to get through what we can get through here. But might be a long afternoon. But wind me right back. So obviously everyone knows your dad, the career, all that sort of stuff. Because he was busy doing all of that at the time, your early racing, karting, Formula Ford even, you kind of sort of had to find your own way to a degree.
Yeah.
But you had the bug early, I'm guessing. It wasn't like it came later on.
No, look, I loved it, and I was as a kid, I was a pretty competitive into competitive sport. You know, I played cricket, played soccer,
Bowl or bat?
wicket keep, batsman.
Wicket keep. Yeah. Oh, a bit of ghillie, actually.
Yep.
Nice.
Long before Gilly, mind you.
Yeah, well,
So-
true.
But
yeah.
Rod Marsh.
Oh, yes.
Rod Marsh.
Yes.
And that was good fun. And I probably and I was also Dad's biggest fan, going to the motorsport whenever we could. But of course, once we started going to school, it was reserved for the local events and Bathurst pretty well. Bathurst.
That was the family holiday for you, wasn't it? October, Bathurst.
That's exactly right. It was Bathurst, and more often than not, we'd go back to New Zealand over Christmas to catch up with the family over there, and that sort of tapered off as we got busier, and I got busy with the go-karts and stuff like that. But I race karts, started at 15. Again, it came about from a mate of Dad's. We used to have fish and chips on a Friday night. All the Dad's mates who used to go motorbike riding with would come over, and one of them bought a kart, and he said, "Come out the track. I'm going out tomorrow. Come and have a drive." Oh yeah, cool. That'd be good. That was the catalyst for, okay, that's unbelievable. I can't believe I haven't done this. And I'd driven karts and stuff like that, but not
more fun sort of.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's how that started. But the only problem was Dad was away most weekends racing, and when he wasn't racing, and we got into the karts, I had some really good friends. A young guy, Wayne Sterling, that went to school with my sister. A couple of years younger. His dad was heavily involved with his karting, and they were just up the road, so I would go with them. And if not, I had a mate that was a few years older. He had his license, and he got a kart, so we started to go together. It certainly was never ever a thought at that point that, hey, this is the thing. But as I got more and more into it, and I started to have a bit of success, the next, I don't want to bore everyone with the details, but the next thing was there was an opportunity to test a Formula V at Calder amongst.
So this is the first chance to drive racing.
Yeah,
car.
yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And this is at age 16, 17 maybe?
I'm going to say 17.
Yeah.
16, maybe 17. And on the same day, there were a couple of other the Formula V Association had set this up. There were a couple of other young guys. I think Darren Hossack. I think Lounsey. I can't quite remember, but there were about 4 of us. I think we all got to have a drive Formula V. And then pretty well we got to a point in the karting where I would do all my own prep in the garage. Quite often Dad, if he was around, but he was busy because he had to mow the lawns. We had 2 acres at that point, living in North Ringwood.
And has he
Park
got
Orchards.
the Bob Jane team at the time? So there's between racing, life, family, there's a lot going on.
Yep. So he'd generally drop me in the morning. I'd do the karting, and he'd come pick me up in the afternoon. And then a mate of mine who got the kart too, we got a trailer together, and off we go doing that. So then through Wayne Sterling's dad, Bob, who used to take us to the track for karting, Bob had started to become involved in Formula Ford at state level series, working with Margaret Hardy and a guy called Tony Armstrong at Winton, and he'd started to sort of get involved in some media stuff. And he'd bumped into Mike Borland at a state level event or something. Mike had just built his third Formula Ford, and that was the first foray for me into car racing. And basically, Mike had said, Dad took me out to Calder one day to have a drive of the car. That was the first thing, and I actually remember Dad saying, he said, we're driving out there, and he said, "Are you sure you want to do this?"
Really?
Yeah. He said, this is hard and it's tough and it's going to cost a lot of money, and are you sure this is something you want to do? And I said, well, yeah, naturally, yeah, for sure. So when I had to drive the car, from that, Mike said, look, no one's racing my car this year. If you're prepared to come and do the work on the car and run it on the weekends and pay the expenses, I'm happy for you to do that. So that's sort of how that Formula Ford thing started. I did that in 1991 with Mike, and I used to go to his workshop afterward. He was in Brayside, which is the next suburb from Moorabbin, where I was working as an apprentice aircraft mechanic.
The one you didn't finish?
The one I didn't quite finish.
Got to remind you about it every time now.
So that's how that started, and then it just grew from there. And that turned into a Van Diemen the following year, and then winning the championship in '94.
Do you remember your first actual car race?
I do, and I can't remember if it was the first race, but I know that it was at the first race weekend. We'd been up and done a couple of test days on Fridays and all that sort of thing, and I lined up on the grid. Can't remember quite. I think I might have qualified.
And this is like a state round?
State round, yep.
Sandown,
so the Victorian
Winton.
State Series in '91 at Winton.
Yep.
And Lounsey was racing in his 85. Stephen White was doing Formula Ford that year. He was even dipping into the national series, but doing some state level stuff as well. There were lots of guys that ended up going through the process to touring cars, supercars. But so I've lined up on the old front straight at Winton, and red light's gone off, and I've been in reverse, and I've gone backwards.
Oh no! You were actually in reverse gear.
I was in reverse,
not in neutral and roll backwards.
No,
you were in.
I was in reverse. So
oh my god, you could only go up from there.
The detent was pretty light, and reverse was right next to first, and I was only in it for a split second, Aaron.
But you were in reverse.
But I was in
reverse
reverse for my first start, or on the first race weekend. Wow. So I recovered from that.
It was only up.
Here we are. Yeah, here we are.
It worked out okay. Well, get that out of the way early. Don't there's probably no vision of it either.
No, there definitely
State series round, no telly.
There was no GoPros.
No YouTubes, no blend lines, nothing along those lines.
No,
so
that's right.
So Formula Ford works out well. We're fast forwarding a little
Yes.
bit here, but you win the national championship in '94.
Yep.
So that's Valvoline sponsorship.
Mm-hmm.
So is that, for so many years, the Valvoline money came via Gary Rogers?
Yes.
Was that the case?
Yeah, that was the case.
So whose team was that? How was that all run, and who was what where? Because Noski was in another car, and who ran that? What was that whole situation?
we so to start with, when we got our first car in '91, we ran Bob Jane's sponsorship, which midway through the year turned into Valvoline. Now Gary was doing the sponsorship with Valvoline back then. Wasn't as plug and play as it became, but we ran that car out of our garage at home in Ringwood, or Park Orchard, sorry, and then I would tow it to the races. So we weren't involved with Gary at all, other than through the sponsorship.
Yep.
And I did that for that year. That was actually Russell Ingall's British Formula Ford championship car. That Dad had done a deal with Russell.
Wow, you do a deal with Russell?
Yeah.
Did you have any fingers left at the end of it? Or?
Yeah. I think his Dad's pockets were a bit lighter.
Yeah.
But no, Russell was fantastic. Shipped the car back. It arrived with the Bradshaw's 90. It was a 91 car for 1992.
For 92, right.
Yep.
Van Diemen.
Yep. Van Diemen.
Yeah.
It had the Bradshaw's white livery with the green Bradshaws on it, the car that he used at the Formula Ford Festival. And we used that as our first year car. And it was great. So by the end of that year, I think we'd had I don't know if I'd had a win, but I'd been on the podium and that national series. And I towed it I'd leave work on a Wednesday afternoon, even to go to the AUSCAR rounds.
Oh,
at
yeah,
Amateur Park.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'd come home. Dad would have had the car. We would have prepped it. He would have it loaded. I'd drive up in my Ford XF panel van hook the trailer on, and off we'd go. And we'd drive through the night, right? We'd drive
And
straight through.
who's doing this with you?
Oh, I had my cousin Dave for a while.
You're roping in whoever
Yep,
will help.
Yep. One of the guys from Blue Demon Aviation where I worked, he came a few times. There's only the two of us.
Really?
And we used to park up near, and we had an annex on the side of the trailer, and we'd go racing. And that's the way I've grown up with my racing. Always been really, really heavily involved in the prep side, even to a point particularly through the early days at Gary Rogers, working on the cars during the week and then driving the race cars on the weekend. And even pretty hands-on at when I became a driver, I was still pretty hands-on down the week. Always involved, always trying to make a difference, trying to be an extra vault of knowledge, so to speak, to help things. So that was great. 91 was really good, and then 92 was really good. 93 and 94 became a lot more professional. We had Bobby Smith come on board, who was Russell Ingall's mechanic in Australia. So almost full-time preparation. When we moved into the workshop at Gary Rogers.
And that's at the car dealership.
Yeah, that's at the back of the car dealership, Springvale Road
Yep.
in Glen Waverley. And we sort of, I guess, rode on the coattails of what Gary was doing. Gary was doing AUSCAR out at Calder at that point. I think he'd sort of finished up in 1991, 90 at Bathurst with the touring cars.
I think he did a couple more.
Did he? Yeah.
Well, he ran his own
Yes.
1990, but then I think he co-drove with Terry Finnegan for
Yeah,
a
of
couple
course,
years
of course.
Like,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
but the
Yep.
Oscar stuff was zinging along pretty much.
Yep.
And competitively too. Like
It was.
that's probably when Gary Rogers Motorsport as a team really, like he'd raced a lot
Yep.
over the years. The Tiranas, even the BMW Group C Commodores,
Yep.
Group A Commodores. But the GRM that we sort of know as a race team sort of kicks off in that period,
It does.
really, that early
Yeah.
90s.
Yep.
Thunderdome, Oscar,
Yep.
all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So,
Sure.
so you're right in and among it by this stage here. Like and was there a previous connection between Gary and Jim?
Oh, great friends.
Because wasn't Gary
Yep.
one of the first people?
He was.
When
So when
you guys came over?
Yep, when Mum and Dad came to Australia, they were at Calder. He was almost the first guy that came up and introduced himself to Dad. And at the time, Mum and Dad couldn't afford, they couldn't afford much. And because they didn't have a credit rating in Australia, Gary did the car salesman thing and managed to finance
Saw these Kiwis coming.
finance a couple of cars for them, and that's the friendship started from way back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So by this stage, so what are we, 94, you in the National Series. And at the time, there's no Super 2 Carrera Cup.
No.
The pathway back then is Formula Ford, Formula Holden.
No,
sort of-
Formula
it's-
Holden was
off,
there.
It was
but
off to the
yeah,
side
it
with the
was.
2-litre thing.
Yep.
Touring cars.
Yep.
There's kind of no other, like now we've got so many options going on. It's kind of probably a cluttered landscape, but then it's actually far more simple.
It definitely
in a way,
was.
it's
It
as
definitely
simple
was.
as
But
puff.
but it's probably even saying that probably from 1995 onwards, it became more of a pathway as those legendary drivers that owned their own teams started to realise that
We can't go forever.
we can't go forever.
Yeah.
We need to find young guys. That's really when it started. And Cam McConville was probably the first one that got the opportunity with Dick. Then Lounsey sort of got some opportunity, but through a different pathway with HRT, through Formula Holden, and then got picked up. That was sort of a period, even though Formula Ford still wasn't. It was the pathway that was being created. It wasn't the pathway.
Yeah, true.
But it started to become, some guys out of Formula Ford got some co-drives, like in the early 90s, even Russell. I think Russell,
Yeah, well,
1991.
1990, he drove the GIO car.
Yep.
And then obviously went away, came back
Yep.
with the Coke car
Yep.
and the Larry thing. And
It was sort of a
Rest is
period where the teams were starting to look at the young guys. Before 1990, there wasn't a lot
not
of
really anyone getting
Yeah.
any Guernsey.
Yeah.
Tell me about and I think this is a bit that's forgotten because there's so much of your career, but you go AUSCAR racing with GRM and with the Valvoline team, and there's a nice touch here because as we're recording this, we talked about this a while back now, but there's one of your old AUSCARs
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
that you posted something about the other day,
Yep.
a month or so ago by the time this comes out. But it's still around. It's the car you raced, number 34, Valvoline
Yep.
Falcon, on the Dome, on the flat track at Oran Park.
Oh, it was just
like,
the best time.
We get so much love from the fans for the Thunderdome era, and you were right there among it. It was kind of the boom period. Just
Yeah, it was. It would have been. So that was really the first taste of, after Formula Ford, of sedan racing. I think I did Porsche Cup in '94 in a car that Dad.
That's right, the
had.
968.
Yep.
So
But-
he would do the whatever it was called, the super production.
Yes.
On the same weekend, and then you drive the Porsche Cup races on the same weekend in the same car.
And all we'd have to do is pull the ABS fuse out, because you weren't allowed ABS in Porsche Cup.
Right.
So
You have to plug it back in for
had
him.
to plug it back in for him. So it was great. But you're right. The that particular car we posted is just a body shell, but that was the car that I raced for the majority of time that we did AUSCAR, and we only did it for like a season and a half.
Mm.
But they were just the best events. The turning up on a late on a Friday to bump in a practice at like 10 or 11 in the morning, and then qualify, race under lights, 110 laps. The cars couldn't go flat out for the whole race because we used a radial Goodyear
That's
Eagle
right.
tyre.
Wasn't it slick, was it?
It wasn't
No.
a slick. It was just a road tyre that we buffed. We buffed the tyre down. And if you race flat out on them, they'd explode at about lap 60. So it was all this sort of trying to manage. And generally, whether it worked out or whether they threw the caution as a safety measure, but most of the time, competition course.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it worked out that between lap 50 and lap 70, probably because the tyres exploded and someone ended up in the fence, you'd end up doing a pit stop. And then from there, it was a flat out sprint to the end. And the racing was just mega. It was really good. And there were some really, really good steerers. Terry Wyhoon, John Faulkner.
Were you in the era of Brad? He was
No, he was in NASCAR.
just gone off to
Yeah,
NASCAR
he
as
just
you're
gone off
sort
to
of
NASCAR.
arriving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he virtually had the mortgage
He
on
did.
AUSCAR there
Yep.
for a long time. But
Yeah.
wasn't there a cracking fight on the short track under lights, Oran Park, you versus John Faulkner? And isn't that the one where he famously said, boys, I think he said in a TV interview or whatever, what was it? Put my name on the trophy now, or engrave my name on the trophy now.
Yeah, it was.
And
it
it
was.
didn't quite work out that way.
No, and I sort of felt like that year, and they were good because they sort of established little rivalries here and there. And I think I'd come in as the young guy that, up against the establishment sort of thing to a degree. I got on with everyone great, but there was definitely this. I felt like a bit of this us and him type scenario, and he was the young guy that was coming to try and dominate this new world sort of thing. But it took a little while to get going. But that race at Oran Park,
Look it up. It's a corker.
That was my bread and butter for a start. Circuit racing was where, and it was on the short track, and JF and I had this unbelievable race in the final. It was basically winner take all sort of thing, and it got pretty physical, and it got bump and grind, and it, like I remember. So on that last lap, it's all kicked off. We've got together. JF's suspension's broken, and I've continued. But when I got to the line and I won, and then I came round into the pit lane, there wasn't a straight panel on the car. It had 3 flat tyres. Like the tyres had gone down after and we had enough of a gap that we didn't get caught. But we actually had to do the whole. A guy called Al Basnight, who was from NASCAR in the States.
Yep.
He's like a pit road official, and he used to come out and officiate for Bob. We actually had to go to Bob's because there was a lot of beef after it, and they didn't want. And Al said it. We don't want to see any retribution from this heading into the next few events. And JF, myself, Al Basnight, we had to go to Bob's favourite restaurant in Lygon Street.
So this is like Days of Thunder.
I'm telling you.
No way. This is like Cold Trickle.
Exactly like it.
What's his name? Rowdy Burns getting called to the big sit-down
The only thing missing was the rental
hire
cars.
cars on the
the
bench?
only thing missing was the rental cars. It was unbelievable. It was like, and we had to sit there, and there was no drama. But I'm the young bloke, and JF's, he's the experienced guy, and JF's a legend. Like some of the stuff that he did through karting, the Toyota racing team, as a privateer in supercars, is just unbelievable. Like the guy was such an amazing talent behind the wheel, and he whether he was playing up on it or not, or was trying to intimidate me, he didn't like me. Yeah. At that point in time, there was never really. It was.
You were a threat.
Well, I don't know if I was a threat, but I was a young kid, and he was the established guy, and incredible driver.
Did Bob pay for dinner?
He did.
Yeah. Nice.
Yep.
Cool. Was it imposing driving on the Thunderdome, because it's very different to what you'd been doing or what road racing is? But did it take you a while to get your head around it?
Yeah, it did. Where we were lucky was, so at the end of '94, I'd finished my apprenticeship, and Gary had given me the opportunity to come and drive for him, and that really was the establishment of Gary Rogers Motorsport as a professional team.
So you go in and do the AUSCAR.
Yep.
Is that kind of a paid deal?
It is.
This is your first professional.
Well, I'm now working for Gary as a mechanic, and there was myself, Mike Excel, and Shirl was working part-time in the dealership or doing some contracting for another guy when you putting imported cars together.
Which is Kevin Scheuer, for those who...
Yeah, Kevin.
Because at
Kevin
GRN, you got to have a nickname.
Yep.
But you escaped, didn't you?
I did.
You just Richo.
Yeah, I was just Richo.
That's easy.
That was
no real
good
story there.
So there was 3 of us, and then that grew to 5 of us, and then it started to, as we moved forward. But that was... like I remember one time. So here's a classic.
Here we go.
We've gone in, and Mike was doing all the engines. We were both doing all the prep. Shirl was coming in on days when he didn't have his other job. There were a couple of guys from the dealership that would come up and help out, but the actual AUSCAR meetings were made up of Gary's car dealership, Brett Smith, who's got the shell of that AUSCAR at his panel beating shop. Brett worked part-time. He also had his dad racing out, and we
Wayne
became
Smith.
Wayne Smith.
Yeah,
We've become really good mates. And Mike, something had happened, and Mike had a bit of an argument, I think, with Gary about something, and he just had one of those days, and we were supposed to be going out to Calder to set up and get everything sorted, load the cars and go out to Calder and get set up ready for the weekend. So it was a Friday. And anyway, Mike's picked up his lunch. He's gone home.
Oh, he's pulled a pin.
He's pulled the pin. And I'm there at, what am I, at that point I'm 21, 22. I go down and say, hey, Gary, Mike's left. And he goes, righto, Stevie, no problem. He said, you can drive the truck out. I went, oh, I don't have a license. He goes, you'll be right.
So Gary.
Yep, you'll be right. No
Press
dramas.
on. She'll be fine.
Yep,
all good.
So
no worries.
I went, righto, here we go. And it's an old Scania with I think at that point it still had, for a long time there, Gary had, I might be wrong here, he had Bob Jane's old Pantech. I'm pretty sure it was that trailer. And anyway, righto. So I'm like,
you're packing it.
Okay.
This is like, whoa.
Yep. So we had, and I think, just trying to think, I think Dad might even have come and said it. No, he wouldn't have, because he would have driven the truck. Anyway, he didn't. So I drove the truck out to Calder, through the city, out on the Princess Highway. Anyway, so that great things that you remember at the time. Got there, we get in. Gary arrives out a bit later on because he'd been busy. We did our practice. We must have had I don't know, someone must have come out and give us a hand or met us out there. But anyway, yeah.
That's so Gary though, isn't
it? Yeah, it is.
Right, press on, no worries.
Absolutely.
I loved the Gary Rogers phone call. There was no, g'day mate, how you going? What's happening? How's the weather? How's things? It was just right, bang, straight into it, done. And before you kind of finished, he was already gone.
Yep, that's
Like,
right. That's
seriously,
right. He'd
no
said what he
time.
had to say. He'd got
Yeah.
an answer, and he was on to the next thing.
Yep, right. Okay, see you, bye.
Yep.
Back.
Yep.
Done. That's exactly how it was.
Leaving a little bit of detail off, but you got the rough idea. How you achieved that idea, he wasn't too concerned.
Yeah,
about
whatever.
that, knew you'd get
Outcome driven, outcome focused. Another thing I've forgotten, I do remember watching and I found the video recently. I think we posted a bit of this. The Winton 6 hour. That Pulsar that you drove with Gary Rogers Nissan on it, with Mel Price.
Yep.
I saw that for sale on Marketplace. I reckon last year, this year, not sure if it's still there. 17.5 grand. I didn't think that was a bad.
17.5.
We might have to
Jesus.
go and put some stickers back on it and figure out. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
92,
yeah, absolutely.
3,
Yeah, I reckon
around
92. And at the time, Winton actually suited the little cars pretty good. And I think Mark Braham and Henry Draper.
Suzuki Swift Gurus.
Yep.
Yeah,
GDI.
they were regulars.
GDI. And we finished second, I think.
Triple S Pulsar.
Yeah, Triple S Pulsar. Great little car.
Off the
Great
showroom
little
floor?
car. Yeah. Yep. I would have been, Gary would have done a deal with Nissan.
Of course he would have. There would have been a deal. There was always a deal.
That's right. But yeah, we went and did I think we did the 12-hour as well at Bathurst. And Murray Carter had a Pulsar Triple S, and he was a weapon. He went really good too. So that's good times. I mean, I'm so lucky. I still, I at the time you're a young guy, just, how good's this? Just focused and hungry and just want to do everything you can. But, you reflect now and you just go, wow, I'm just so lucky. I just did so many really, really cool things.
The AUSCAR, just backtracking into that for a minute. NASCAR, AUSCAR, Sportsman, HQs, like it became this, like almost like a racing community of its own. And there are a lot of people who had come from road racing, a lot of speedway people who had sort of taken the step up to, I guess we call it super speedway.
Yes.
Really, But there was a time when the road course races started to come in, the Gold Coast Indy.
Yep, that's right.
The short track at Oran Park, I think it was like Thunder in the Park, whatever they called it. The short track at Calder got a bit of a run.
Yep. Adelaide.
AOR. That's what I was going to ask you about. The little short, flat bull ring there.
Yep.
Looking back on it, it's kind of not celebrated enough because the touring cars and the V8 supercars is the really dominant historical element.
Yep.
But that whole period of the Dome, AUSCAR, NASCAR, that like late 80s, it runs out of puff by the end of the 90s.
Yep.
But there's more stories and there's more stuff to be told there because it was cool.
It was a great time. It really was. Like I've got just the racing. The racing was awesome. The crowds, like towards the end there, that night racing stuff, there'd be 8 to 12, depending on the event, 8 to 12,000 people sitting up in the stands.
Like traffic it was jam back out the highway there.
Yep. Yeah. It was just a really good time. I got so many great memories from that period, and that was, as I said, really the first thing I'd done outside of Formula Ford. That was fast. It was dangerous. I actually never had a crash into the wall out there because I was scared.
You didn't go fast enough.
Yeah. But we had in the end there, we had a pole. We had a win out there on the Thunderdome.
Well, I think you broke the drought, didn't you? Because it was just Holden dominated in AUSCAR for years.
Yep.
And you won at the Dome in, I think, maybe early 95, late 94.
I think you're right, early 95, I think.
But it broke a streak of because there was mainly Commodores in that field.
Yes.
Fords were a bit thin on the ground, but you broke the drought. Maybe it was late 95, actually.
Yeah, it could have been.
But it was a drought breaker because no one in a Falcon had won on the Dome for
a long time.
Maybe since back to your dad, when he was
possibly
in the early stages, because it was a Commodore fest.
Yeah, it was,
really.
and we sort of thought we'd work that out. We thought the front suspension geometry on the Ford meant that because the cars used to compress so much into the dome, into the banking, that we actually thought the main difference was that the roll centers on the front suspension geometry when it end up so far virtually under the ground that the amount of load on the outside tyre was such that it wasn't as easy on the tyre as the Commodore. Now, that was only a theory, but I know we had to drive those cars so much, the Fords that is, we had to drive them a lot differently than it would appear the Commodores. You really couldn't press on flat out for more than 20 laps for risk of, and you used to smell it. Like what I used to remember was I got this innate sense because I did not want to crash those things up into the concrete wall. And you had this innate sense. It almost smelled like you could smell the tyre when it got down to the carcass. It was like a pungent off. Right, because you used to wear the goggles. You know, the goggles. Oh yeah, open face. Ran the night vision night goggles. Just because that's what you did.
Just everyone else did.
Yeah, everyone else was doing it, and that's just what you did. So anyway, you knew when you were about to, like, you'd lose a bit of grip, but when the tyre went, it wasn't like you get slower and slower. So it just went boom,
like
and you just shot up. You're up into the concrete. So you sort of developed this.
You got a very good nose.
A very, very good nose. Very good nose.
Very good nose. Yeah. Does it come in handy for anything else other than potential blowing tyres on the Thunderdome?
No.
What's going to happen with that Falcon?
So what happened was Brett saw it up at Bathurst Speedway sitting out in a paddock.
I used to commentate out there.
Yep. So I think a lot of those cars became part of. They ended up at Goulburn, Wakefield.
Yeah, Wakefield, like a drive school car type thing.
Yes. And I saw the comments. There are a couple of guys I
used
think,
to work on them.
Gary Wilmington and there's a few guys that actually drove those cars back then.
And then did they end up at Winton because of the common ownership between the two tracks with the Ronks? I think maybe.
And then somehow some of them ended up out at Bacchus Marsh. He spotted it out there, and Brett and his family used to pit right next to us, and then Brett used to come out to some of the early supercars stuff with Gary Rogers. He would work, and actually Gary offered him a job at one stage, but he decided to keep continuing down the path as a panel beater. But Brett saw it, and he rang Gary, and he said, "Hey Gaz, this car's out here in a paddock. Do you want me to grab it?" So Gary actually. I'm pretty sure Gary bought however much they paid, was not much. It's just a painted body shell, and Brett bought it back with a view that one day they would, when he had the time, they'd restore it. And of course that's probably, I don't know, it still might happen, but never know
because there is so that when that all popped up. It sent me down the rabbit holes are dangerous things when you work at V8 Sleuth.
You're about rabbit hole go down.
Yeah, I went a long way down on this one because it's sort of early before the sleuthing era really kicks off. So I round back and so there'd been a Gary Falcon that was written off at AIR in a crash, and this car that we're talking about replaced that.
That's right.
So there were a few different AUSCARs of the GRM era. I haven't been out to GRM for a little while, but they've had for a long time a Valvoline 36 Falcon that was built but never raced.
I built it.
That was you?
Yep. So me, Mike, Shirl, we were building that. We got a lightweight shell from Ford.
So that's the time that the touring cars were getting the lightweight shells too.
That's right. So we were going to build, that was going to be we'd gone through the regulations, and we were
this is a hot rod. This
was going to be the good car, and that's the one that's sitting up on the So it basically
the mezzanine at the workshop.
Yeah, at the time that we were doing it never had an engine fitted to it. It's suspension ready to go, and I think that's how it is now. From basically 95, we there were three of us that were building it. Yeah.
Don't worry, folks. We're done with part 1 with Richo, but part 2 is loaded and ready to get stuck into. There's lots of great stories from the Super Touring days and Richo's move to England to become the test driver for Nissan in the British Touring Car Championship. It is well worth tuning into. I'll catch you there for part 2 of Richo with the V8 Sleuth Podcast, powered by Parramatta Toyota.